virtually on Aboriginal land. I am here on Wurundjeri country, and when I do my intros, I'll get everyone to say what land they are on. I pay my respects to Aboriginal elders, past, present, and emerging, and I'm so thankful to Aboriginal people for making art on this land for over 65,000 years. We are very honoured to be guests on this land. As I said, my name's Carly. I am a writer, speaker, appearance activist, and I also work at Melbourne Fringe as a access and inclusion coordinator. It is the best job. Today, I'll be talking about access and art, and I will want to introduce you to my fellow panelists. I'm going to start with Jacci.
Hi, I'm Jacci Pillar, they, them. I'm an independent comedy producer of socially justice-inspired comedy, mainly political satire. And I am a non-binary person seated in a studio with a piano and some burlesque costumes behind me with pointy red hair and a red velvet jacket.
Thanks, Jacci. Laila?
Hi there, I'm based on Wurundjeri country, always was, always will be sacred Indigenous lands. My name is Laila Thaker. I'm a proud Miriam and Budalug woman. I'm an actor, artist, visual artist and producer with the Ilbidjeri Theatre Company. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a melanated woman and I'm with light brown hair, and I'm wearing a snakeskin button-up shirt with a shell-collared, shell choker necklace, and I'm in my reading room with one of my artworks in the background.
Nat?
Hi there, my name's Nat. I'm in Sydney on Gadigal land. I'm he, him. I'm an online creator, comedian with an incredibly offensive bright orange beanie on, sitting against a very plain, boring background.
And Erin?
Hi, my name is Erin Kyan. My pronouns are he, him, and I am speaking to you from Bunwurrung country. I extend my respect to elders past, present, and emerging, and to all Indigenous people who are watching. I am a white man with brown hair, short brown hair, and impressive facial hair, wearing headphones against a white background. I am a writer and a producer, and I do so much stuff. At the moment, it's mostly podcasts. I do fiction podcasts, but I do all kinds of things. I am fat, queer, trans, and disabled, and these are all vital parts of my work as well.
Thank you. I realised I did not describe myself. I am a woman with short, dark curly hair, a red face, and I am wearing a green jacket with a fig brooch on, and also a purple dress with flowers. I'm going to throw over to a video from Ricky Buchanan now. Ricky will be joining us in video form, though not live.
G'day, I'm Ricky Buchanan, a fat white woman with a crew cut and a blue t-shirt. I'm lying in a hospital bed and looking up at the camera which is mounted in midair. Pleased to be here with you.
Thanks so much, Ricky. We also have Paul and Karen, our Auslan interpreters, and this event will also be live captioned as well. It will be recorded and there will be captions and a transcript after that when it's uploaded. So we are talking about accessible art today, and one of the things that we've seen with COVID is that it's been a very quick move to put art online. For many years, and as you know now, many of us in this chat are disabled, and we have been asking for more accessible art, and now that COVID's here, we've got more accessible art, which is great, and we want to talk about the importance of it being here to stay. We don't want when this is all over, for art to be all over either. We want to have access to art all the time. So I'm going to ask you all to talk a bit about your art and the importance of making online art. Have you made online art before COVID, or has it just come about because of COVID? I'll go around on my screen. I can see Erin first.
Yeah, so for me, my work hasn't been tremendously affected by COVID because my work at the moment is all podcasts, which is all digital online work anyway. Having said that, the longer COVID continues, I'm realizing that it may start affecting our productions because we predominantly work with locals who don't have their own recording equipment, and we usually all get together in a studio to record things. So that's definitely going to be a challenge as things go on. Yeah, like it's certainly been interesting because my disability means I spend most of my time on bed rest. I'm upright for this because I love you all. And I spend most of my time at home anyway. So yeah, all my workflow and everything has not changed all that much. And it's weird because everything has gotten way more busy since COVID happened, because now everything is suddenly online. And I'm like, wait, this was my place. Why is everyone coming in? So yeah, it's interesting. So it hasn't affected me that much so far, but the longer this continues, it's going to affect my work eventually. And I'm very sorry, I talk a lot. I'll stop now.
Thanks, Erin. What about Jacci?
I need to point out before I forgot to say I'm on Wurundjeri country, so I really apologise for that. I have been in a sort of different space. I do a lot of live comedy production, and I've been wanting to slowly move to online for accessibility reasons as a member of the autistic community. And also, so I've been developing things and we've been slowly moving there, but for me, it's all new. I have made some online videos in the past, but it's fairly new for me. So trying to make a big, large transition. And I do a lot of work with Channel 31 Community TV, and they are doing the same. As you know, again, the whole studio experience is now here. So
amazing. Jacci, I just wanted to ask you one question. Last year at Melbourne Fringe, you were our first show off the rank, and you did do some live streaming, and it didn't go so great. But do you think that now you've learnt a lot and you've got more preparation for when you are going to do a in-person live stream show?
Yeah, for sure. In fact, what I'm doing right now is the full setup that we had at Tickets on Myself, which was an intersectional comedy showcase. And it went wrong major because of infrastructure. When we boil it down to it, and it was interesting because I was thinking the other day, is this a similar situation? It is, because at that point in time, Melbourne Fringe was transitioning to Trades Hall as the hub venue, and it was an old building with old infrastructure. And when it got down to it, an hour before the show, our plan A, our plan B, and our plan C all failed. And we had suspected that there might be, because it was such a huge change, that issue. So we had warned people who bought live stream tickets that the technology might fail us. But it was incredibly, for me, because I was doing it for the autism community, me personally, we were doing it for every person who can't attend a live event. But for me, I really felt like I had let my community down. So the lessons were plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, E, F, G. I'm not sure. But no, we've got it sorted now. And I think that's one of the positives of all of this is, you know, that we are now, from an accessibility point of view, for people who have sensory barriers in my community, we are creating more opportunities through more live stream. So yeah, it was a big learning curve, steep learning curve.
Amazing. Thank you so much. What about you, Laila?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. COVID has had a dire impact in my arts practice, particularly with performance and acting. Like, that's just absolutely gone from 100 to 0. But in saying that, you know, there's been two really interesting opportunities that have come my way. I'm doing a creative development with the Street Theatre, who are based in Canberra, and which that wouldn't have happened if, you know, we didn't have to resort to digital ways of collaborating. So that was really quite a great outcome, and making that connection with the Palawa mob there as well too. But with Ilbidgery Theatre, like it's been very difficult because obviously, and actually it's not so much about, you know, our pieces, we're in the theatre and we need an audience and things like that. That's not the issue. It's actually the process. So with a lot of our works working with mob and community, like the biggest step in our process is being on country and collaborating with our communities and actually having them yarns and having that space. And, you know, that's just so vital to the foundations of all of our work. So that has been really challenging for us. So we've had to really rethink and reshape how can we then go ahead with these projects. And in fact, we actually can't. So a lot of our timelines have been pushed right out. It has been fun though, actually having some Zoom meetings with some of our elders, which has been hilarious. Like the first half an hour of our Zoom meetings are literally like, all right, uncle, so you got to check your, check your little setting there for the mic. It's just like hectic, but like we just, you plan for that to happen. So that's been really a novelty for me in particular, just yarning with elders across the computer and, just taking that on board and just going with the flow. And similar to what Jacci said, like we've got plan A, B to, to X. So, but so challenges and positives.
Thanks. What about you, Nat? Tell me about your work online.
My work online is, I suppose I've been one of the lucky bunch that have kind of thrived on the, maybe thrived isn't the right word, but been lucky enough to find a pretty enormous new audience on online during lockdown. And during this time I've kind of pivoted what I do to a more how-to format on, mostly cooking videos, just trying to stick into my same game of taking the piss a little bit. So it's in one respect it's been pretty hard for what I do in terms of keeping it dynamic. I've been really doing the same kind of thing, but because I'm health affected too, I can't go out and do as many things as I might like to do, and I certainly can't perform heaps of stand-up. So I've had a tour cancelled, and well, not cancelled, but it's had to move. So it's been good and bad, but majoritively really been very lucky.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to move on now to talking about audiences and how online art has made it so much easier for many people to view art, particularly disabled people who haven't been able to have access to galleries and performance spaces as performers and also audiences. And I think, Laila, when you were talking about your elders, you're talking to your elders, I have noticed that my parents have come to every single online event I've done, and they're funny. They sit in chairs on separate computers watching me. Mum will say hello but didn't really mean to, always over a glass of wine as well, which is quite funny. So that's been nice that my family can watch when I don't live close to them. I'm going to get Ali from Melbourne Fringe to cross to Ricki Buchanan now. I'll just say a word about Ricki. Ricki is a woman who is bedbound and homebound, and she did this great video for a event called Platform, and Platform was with Eastern Riverina Arts, and Platform was a disability-led festival in June. And I loved what Ricki had to say so much that I asked Platform if we could borrow this and use it in our event, because what she said is really relevant to what we're discussing, and also using it in this way is accessible for Ricki. It means that she doesn't have to repeat what she said, and she can take part in the way that is most accessible for her. So over to Ricki.
The new online access to arts and events that we've had since COVID-19 has come on the scene has just been really revelatory for people like me. I've had access to a lot of things that I've just never been able to access before. Film festivals, disability film festivals. I've been able to attend live Melbourne Symphony Orchestra concerts online. I've been able to see musicals that haven't otherwise been available online. It's been just amazing for me. Of course, nobody would ever wish for a horrifying and horrific worldwide pandemic, but it is undoubtedly true that in many ways I and other bedridden and homebound people have benefited from it. It's really odd to see so much of the world become so much more accessible to me so quickly. I've been campaigning about accessibility for people who are bedridden and homebound for literally more than a decade, and usually every new little bit of accessibility that we get, it's hard fought, it's it's like inch by inch accessibility campaigning, because we're such a small group of people that that we're often forgotten even by disability advocates, although that's improving now. But yeah, just suddenly having so many of the things that I've been campaigning for sort of dropped in my lap, not because I needed them, but because the able-bodied people needed them. That's just, yeah, it's amazing. It's wonderful, but it's also terrifying. This accessibility isn't here because the world suddenly realized that bedridden and homebound people needed it. It's here just pretty much by accident because able-bodied people needed it, and we were also able to benefit from that. So it does make me very afraid that once the able-bodied people no longer need this accessibility, that it's just going to be all ripped away again, or a good part of it is going to be ripped away again. And yeah, that would be really, really difficult to deal with. I hope that a lot of it stays around even after COVID-19 is under control. That would be amazing. Having lots of arts and events available online is great. The one thing that I have found is a problem for me, I'm only able to do things usually in quite small chunks. So for events where the video is only available effectively live at the specific time the event is on, that's usually not super accessible to me. I need to be able to watch 10 minutes today, and then the next 10 minutes tomorrow, and then maybe half an hour next week. So I need to be able to consume that in very small chunks. So media needs to be available not just in a kind of online live version, but also in a recorded version that I can consume at the speed that suits me. I've also had a problem, which I realize is really difficult to solve, but a problem around open captioning. Now, captions are brilliant, captions are fantastic. I'm 100% behind having captions be available for all online video format things. That's really important, and I'm in no way trying to put that down. But having open captions where the captions are written on the screen as part of the video feed, and I can't at my end then choose to turn them off, that increases the amount of cognitive processing that is needed to watch the video, because part of my brain is reading the captions along with the other part of the brain, which is watching the video. And unfortunately, because I have quite a lot of sensory processing problems, that makes the video about 10 times harder for me to watch. So instead, I will try and arrange the video on my screen so that the captions are physically hidden. But then that means, of course, that I'm missing the lower third of the picture. So, like, captions are brilliant and super important, and please use actual captions. I don't know the correct terminology for this, but where the captions are sent separately to the video stream so that people can turn them on and off, and also then change the font and the color as they require, so that we can meet the needs of the largest number of people instead of just having the captions as part of the video. So I know that technically that is really difficult in some situations at the moment, so we need to make sure that software makes this much easier to do in future. Oh look, bonus cat in my video. That was my cat Vespa. I hope you love her as much as I do. Yeah, I really hope that we get to have a lot of this accessibility stay around after COVID-19. Of course, I'm really afraid that it's going to go away, and I find that makes it really hard to pace myself, because what if I never have these chances again? What if I choose not to watch this orchestra concert now, and then there aren't any more orchestra concerts later on, and I'll be really sad. So yeah, it's been really difficult. It's been really difficult for me to be really sensible around this. So I think that's all the things that I can think of right now.
Thanks so much, Ricky. And I want to talk to Ricky's points for a little while now. I was thinking about when we were able to meet in real life, IRL, and one of the last events I did was at Sydney Opera House. In my work outside of Fringe, I did an event called All About Women, and I have a little rider, I guess, which is not very rock and roll. It involves having a blanket and a glass of water and a heater and no shaking hands. But that's the things that help me with my accessibility needs. And I also, on my rider, asked for accessibility for my audience. And I had asked for my event to be Auslan interpreted, and I also asked for it to be recorded. And obviously the Opera House was wheelchair accessible. And one of the good things about that was it was only one of a few events that were Auslan interpreted and recorded. And something exciting that came out of that was that someone from CNN in America, I think, were watching this video of me talking with Bree Lee and Flex Mummy on stage, and I got asked to write a piece for CNN. And so if it wasn't recorded, that probably wouldn't have happened because it reached a whole new audience. And then that helped me through COVID because it supplemented my income, and I also reached a whole new audience. So, you know, there's so many benefits to making things accessible. I want to go and talk to you all now around how you as an audience member feel and what sort of thoughts you've had after watching or hearing Ricky's video. Jacci?
I just think, you know, like we were talking about wanting this to stay. Yeah, I think as a group, it's in everyone's interest to say we want this to stay. We want this, and I'm sorry, this is not directly in line with your question, but for performers, there's an accessibility issue too. And I am the performer that often has people say to me, "You didn't come to my show," because I can't overload my senses by going to lots of shows. I've given up open mic comedy because it's too overwhelming and I can't do other things. So there's an aspect of this is that this is about providing consumers with people from their own community who are representative as well in a medium that allows this to continue. And the sensory stuff is really often overlooked. And, you know, we are expected as a performer with sensory issues, like I want my list is a bit, you know, I want lighting that's more appropriate. I want a place to go that's quiet. You know, there's a few things I need to help me. So, yeah, I just think I'd just like to further that conversation and see us further that conversation about accessibility in the arts being many things for many people, and that sometimes the solutions are not as difficult as we think they are, or most of the time they're not as difficult.
I agree. And it was like having Ricky involved in this. You know, it wasn't hard. I know that Kieran and Ali, who have been working behind the scenes for Melbourne Fringe, have made it work. But, you know, we made it work, and it shows accessibility can be met. What about you, Erin?
Yeah, I agree 100%. The thing that really stuck with me from what Ricky was saying is something that I felt too, which was almost a resentment that this is what it took to get more accessibility in the arts. A lot of stuff has become more accessible to me because of COVID, and that is a little bit hard to chew on because you don't want to, you know, be ungrateful, I guess, but at the same time, why don't we matter on our own? Why do we have to matter only when it affects everyone and we're just a side effect? You know, I find that very frustrating, and it's actually one of the things I really like about online and digital new media in general is that there is a bit less of that. I mean, obviously nothing is 100% accessible. That's literally impossible, right? Like, I feel like sometimes people get like, oh, well, if it can't be perfect, maybe I shouldn't bother. But like, no, that's the wrong attitude, right? Like, yeah, I just, it's hard for me to be very intellectual about it because I really feel what Ricky was saying on a really emotional level. I just feel very like, yeah, I'm also really scared about how things are going to change when this is all over. You know, I've had this wonderful taste of things being a lot more accessible. And while I have more opportunities than someone like Ricky does, like those opportunities are also harder for me, even if they're more possible. So it's a tricky one. And yeah, I have trouble being intellectual about it. Let's maybe leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think online accessibility for audiences is quite expensive as well. To book Auslan interpreters, do accessible captions and transcripts, and I really liked what the Creative Victoria were doing this year with their online grants for people who were impacted by COVID, and having an accessibility stream. So if you choose to make your event accessible, you can apply for $2,500 extra. I think so often the onus is on disabled people to make our shows accessible because we're making it for our audience, but so often we can't afford that either. So it is really important that we are supported by the government, by philanthropy, to make our shows more accessible for the audience. What about you, Nat?
Yeah, I think it's really important to make your media keep it as progressive as possible. The access is important. It doesn't, it makes sense to if you care to kind of maybe broaden your ways of making your media accessible. And like you say, it can be quite expensive too. So there's a lot of people that have lost their jobs at the moment and might not be able to afford to see those shows that might have otherwise been free. So it's interesting stuff, even what I'm learning today about how I can make that more, what I'm doing, a bit more accessible. I work off a platform that is free, but it's not, I could definitely make moves on improving my captioning stuff and things like that. And interesting hearing from Ricky saying that having those options of things might be a little overstimulating at times, and being able to change that stuff up is important, and not the huge convo going on in my part of the world, at least. So that's cool. I'm learning some cool stuff. But yeah, it's
I challenge you to do a sweary video around making things accessible to your community.
yeah, that's a cool idea. Yeah.
And
yeah.
Laila?
I mean, I guess access in the arts is it's forever going to evolve and change and develop and move direction. One thing that really resonated with me with Ricky is just it is the access to more entertainment, I suppose, but also professional development. There's definitely access for blackfellas for immediate discussions, a seat at the table if you like. But that doesn't spread across our entire community. A lot of our communities don't have NBN. There's only one computer in the entire village, if you will, which is, something to think about as well too. So yeah, it is lower risk for most, lower cost for most, but for some it's not as well. So, but again, it goes back to access is going to forever be evolving, and we have to stop and reflect constantly and check. Another thing that sort of resonated with me with Ricky is just, that they can only view a certain amount of time, at a time, I guess, because digital fatigue is such a real thing as well. Yeah. There's increase in accessibility, but also an increase in poor mental health. So it's just that thing of we have to really be careful. Otherwise we'll become AI, so yeah.
I mean, I've definitely felt that. I work at Melbourne Fringe 3 days a week, and a lot of our days are taken up with meetings, and by the end of the day I don't want to watch any other entertainment, or I might forget. I signed on to something for professional development a couple of weeks ago, and I just forgot about it, and then because it wasn't repeated I couldn't watch it again. So that can be really frustrating as well. I want to talk now a bit about some of the successes that you've had with this new format of watching art, being in art. Have you done anything that you didn't think that you would do before COVID, or have you seen anything that you've found really interesting that you want to implement? Oh, sorry, I meant to introduce you, Jacci.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't. There's my literal brain at work. I've got to network. And because you know, I have a background in social sciences, and I'm always working in the intellectual space behind the scenes of political satire. I have started to network and do videos for people about what it is I do, which I found really useful, but it's opened up some doors for, I'm working on some hybrid arts projects. And one of them, I want to do some filming in regional Victoria, and I've suddenly got young people that want to be involved, that I can involve, who from the autism community, which has just been just really cool for me. And everything I do, I like it to have a legacy. I don't like that word either, by the way, it's just what popped into my head. But yeah, it's been really cool. And the great thing about some of these young people are like, you know, they know a lot about online film more than me, of course, and I honour and value that. And it's been a bit warm and fuzzy for me.
Laila?
Well, actually, mine was simply just with my visual art, because normally I just sell my art at the markets, you know, because I really like that yarn with customers and connecting and face to face. And I literally just moved all my art online and just started selling it online. And actually, I'm selling more art online. So I'm like, well, am I scaring people in these conversations? But you know, it's funny though, like, because when I opened my it's black shell art, by the way, just gonna put that little tag there. You know, I felt a bit shame putting my face to my artwork. I just it was a bit of an alias scenario. So slowly putting my face with my art, it's yeah, that's probably been the only transformation for me. But it's fun, it's good. So yeah. I think making art, and for any artist, performer or otherwise, and writer, etc., it's like he's so vulnerable, you know. But I think with that digital safety, so to speak, yeah, you're able to jump into that vulnerability and feel a little bit more safer, I suppose. So, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. What about you, Erin?
Yeah, so I've suddenly found myself a lot more in like in demand than I was before, because I'm pretty tech savvy. I know how to run a live stream. I know how to do a lot of these things. And a lot of artists were like, oh God, what do? Everything's changed, you know. I've been contacted by, you know, comedians looking like, oh, you do podcasts. Can you help us like do audio online and things like that? And I'm like, absolutely, because I can do that. It's really interesting, like, because the one thing, and I feel like I really connected with what Laila was saying about like how a lot of like her work and programs with sitting around with actual people, because even a lot of our free podcasts that we make, we do in person with local community, and that's really important. And it's been really strange to not have that, you know, as direct a connection at the moment. And it's also been, I was saying to my partner a few weeks ago that I've watched more big budget, high production value, like work in the last couple of months than I have in years, because it's suddenly all available. And what I desperately miss is being in a tiny, shitty, like venue with like 50 seats and there's just one queer person with a microphone on stage. Like, I miss that so much, because you know, as much as like, yeah, this stuff is more accessible, woo, it's actually really hard to get into if it's not already your skill set. Like, developing work for online presentation, whether that's podcasts or videos or anything, live stream, takes a lot of skills, like a lot of very specific skills. And a lot of people don't have those skills. So I think, yeah, like something I would love to see, along with keeping this stuff for accessibility for the audience, we need to make it easier to upskill like creators as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's the hard thing about being a self-producing artist, especially now, that you might know how to make the art but not necessarily know how to put it online or market it online. I know Melbourne Fringe is doing a lot of work around this in skilling people up. We've got heaps of FAQ sessions and info sessions happening. I'm actually doing one on Tuesday night. If you're interested in making accessible art, you can come along. And also we've got a bunch of programs that support people financially in making their art online as well. We've got 2 versions of events this year. Pants on, so that means that you have to put your pants on when you go to watch a show outside, and pants off, you can stay at home and not wear pants and watch a show from your home. Nat, what about you?
Yeah, I suppose I've seen a lot of successes in my medium, being that I've been pushing an online format for the last almost 10 years. So, but receiving such a huge pickup in viewership has definitely been something I've hit the ground running with. I've had access to being able to do Zoom video stuff live on the channel. Well, not live, but I've been able to film like live with international guests and stuff where I wouldn't usually be able to do. Well, maybe given that this has all gone on, I wouldn't have, I might not have had that access before. So been pretty lucky in that respect. It's been kind of it's just been all pretty good for me on this end in terms of sitting already in that space of communicating online all the time. So, but yeah, I'm definitely having to learn how to keep that going and how to keep that. I notice a lot of people need a lot more at the moment, need a lot more from me and my channel, and they'll definitely let me know if they're not getting their video, so that can be pretty heavy there's a bit of pressure there, but all in all, pretty good on my end.
One thing I was talking about before we went live today was I am a fangirl of lots of people, and one of my highlights of ISO was talking to Darren Hayes on Instagram Live. So I've loved Darren since I was 14, so a long time, and he was on Instagram, and I don't think that if it hadn't been for COVID and him sitting up late and me watching Instagram, I would have done that. And our CEO at Melbourne Fringe has said to me, Carly, call me anytime about anything. I called him at like 9:30 at night. I think he thought something was wrong. I told him I've just talked to Darren Hayes on Instagram Live. And I recorded that little chat, and I actually got Jacci to do the transcript of that. Help me out with that. So that was probably my highlight, to have access to, my fandoms. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. What do you want to see? I know we've covered this a little bit already through our discussion, but what do you want to see in a post-COVID world for you as an artist, and also for audience members and disabled people and diverse people? Jacci?
Sure. I preempted that one this time. Just more of the same, like we've said, but I also think that for me, there's a part of this that's about changing things structurally so that access becomes part of our daily conversations and not seen as an add-on. And we've all talked about how expensive it is. Yeah, and let's talk about where we could be creating opportunities instead of for people in terms of employment and jobs and things like that. And because I aim everything sharply at politicians, start looking at accessibility as that too, without it being massively expensive, because it would be part of our daily vernacular. And when I talk about accessibility, that is, like you talk about, Carly, like we've all talked about, accessibility across different, it's human accessibility with all of its diversity.
Absolutely. What about you, Laila? What would you like to see?
Post-COVID, treaties, Gammon. Sorry to just add that. No, I guess for me, less technology and artificial spaces, unless it does serve for more vibrant and inclusive communal art spaces where people actually take care of one another. And also a practice for a deeper awareness, for a collective consciousness. So, I'm talking more towards the BLM movement and, all the other injustices that are happening with the Black identifying and marginalised folk as well that are struggling. Yeah. That's
We've definitely seen a greater, I don't know, awareness of Black issues, and maybe a greater push into the mainstream, do you think, this time?
Absolutely. I mean, the global reach for these particular discussions, there's definitely an increase in exposure and connectivity on that. So yeah, definitely. That's been a massive positive.
Yeah. Erin?
I also think let's have some treaties. But you know what? I'm not fussy. We don't have to wait for COVID to end for treaties. We can just get on that now. I think we could just do that. Look, I think what I would like to see post-COVID is it's pretty clear that everyone's kind of had their minds a bit blown by COVID. Like everyone's been like, oh, heck, like everything's different and we're all learning these new mediums and we're all, figuring stuff out. And so I think what I would like is for us to just not go back to normal. I just want us to keep evolving things rather than just going, okay, it's fine, everyone back outside now. Like, I don't want that. I mean, don't get me wrong. As soon as I am allowed to go to the park, I am going to the park. But I want us to take everything that we've done and learned in COVID, especially in the arts, and take that with us into the future. And so we can figure things out a little bit more. Like, I'm not going to expect miracles. I don't think it's going to, unfortunately, I don't think that we're going to see all of it, what we currently have, stick around. I would love it if we did, but I don't think we will. But I hope that at the very least, the ideas and the experiences that people are having under COVID they'll carry them with them into the future. So yeah, that's my slightly pessimistic but very strong hope.
What about you, Nat?
I'm really enjoying seeing how so many people are starting new things at the moment, and I'd like to see that continue. Like a lot of my amazing creative friends are starting their own channels and writing more and, starting podcasts and being generally creative. That would be amazing to keep seeing that stuff happen and make that gang a bit bigger, and definitely to hang on to these accessible options for people. So some of these shows that might, you suddenly might be able to go to, would be great if those were still available for people that can't go to them. I think now that that's become a bit more of a norm, that'd be cool to push to just, keep that there if it works. And if that's if that's possible.
I've got a question or two questions here actually from the audience, 3. They've just come through on my phone, so I'm going to read them out now. Jared has said that he thinks that disabled people are ready for it. The challenge here would be funders and a reworking of KPIs. Will we value your live views, or will we be more open to community building? So how do we ensure artists are getting paid for this stuff, which is generally free content? How do we ensure that? And especially disabled artists who are often, and Aboriginal people as well, who are often not paid because we're not valued as much as the wider community, unfortunately. Anyone want to jump in here?
I have so many thoughts on this. So obviously I think, so our podcast, we use a Patreon model. We have a Patreon and that covers our costs. And I actually think that's one of the strongest ways to do stuff. But the biggest problem with Patreon is you have to actually build up that following, right?
Yeah.
I would love to see more grants and things like that, but also I don't think grants are necessarily the most accessible option for most people. Yeah. I mean, I don't apply for grants because they're just not accessible for me. So I would love to see explorations of what funding could look like that's not grants. And actually, this might be a little controversial, but I would actually like to see corporations in Australia put some money into the arts. That's very common in other countries, but we don't really do it here in Australia. So, hey, Mr. CEO, maybe throw a few $1 million at the arts industry, you can put your name on it and everything. But yeah, I would like to see more funding opportunities that aren't all based around a grants model, because I just don't think that grants are they're not the only way to fund art. And I think also, I would also like to see more funding for ongoing projects. Again, speaking about grants, most things are for new things.
Yeah.
If you have an existing project, it's really, really hard to get funding for that. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about this forever. I think that when it comes to making sure that marginalized people get paid, the hardest part of that isn't making sure that like they get their money. The hardest part is making sure that people view us as valuable enough to pay in the first place. And so that's like a much bigger cultural issue that I think we just all got to work on as best we can. I think that one of the best places to start is us all doing the best that we can, which I know we generally all already do, but I think it can be very easy to slide into like, oh, well, you know, like we just don't have the money to do this. And I think that that can be a little bit of an easy trap to fall into. Yeah, I'm going to stop talking because I've talked so much, but yeah, I would like to see a more variation in funding options, basically.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And as someone who applied for 3 grants and got 2, it was a stressful time because, you know, I'd lost a lot of my freelance work, and the grants definitely, while I'm very grateful for it, they didn't make up for the amount of income I'd lost. And it was really stressful having to get them in on time on top of the work I was doing, on top of looking for other kind of freelance work. And yeah, I definitely agree. What about you, Laila?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, though, that there's quite a lot of grants and initiatives out there at the moment during this time, but I'd like to see, you know, why is the turnaround so quick? like it's crazy. Can we have a more holistic approach when it comes to grant fund? Like, does there need to be a deadline? But I'm starting to see philanthropics out there that are throwing money at more holistic projects anyway, and new ways of working, and something that's completely decolonized and out of the box and very much has nothing to do with the old economy. So that's kind of exciting. So I'd like for that to continue on and expand in the art sector in particular. And also with Ilbidgery, you know, we're working very closely with Ani Terry Janki with not monetizing, but I guess instead of having cultural consultants, you know, we now have cultural collaborators. And in fact, even that doesn't work. Like, how do we actually put value in cultural knowledge with our elders? So we're working with Ani Terry Janki and Mugalan and Yuri Arkin. We're sort of using this time to really get that happening, which is very exciting.
Yeah, great. I'm going to move on to my next question now. Sorry, we've got a few coming in. I have a question actually for our Auslan interpreter, who Karen. Somebody would like to know, does Karen, our Auslan interpreter, also interpret the Victorian COVID-19 press conferences? Karen, are you able to turn your mic on and say that you do or don't?
Karen said yes.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Paul. We got a bit of a celebrity in the house then. My next question was from Jacci. And Jacci said that, sorry, I don't think that was a question. I think that was a tip. There's a few questions coming through. How do we, as part of the disability community and other marginalised communities, ensure access remains post-COVID? I have a thought on that. I'll answer that really briefly, and that's from Laura. I think that we have to keep demanding for access. We have to keep asking for it. I regularly talk about this on my social media. You know, we've got to hold people to account, hold media organisations to account, and government and funders and arts. But also, I think it's really important not to put the onus on disabled people entirely, because we are often expected to do so much work in addition to living with a disability, and we really need to put that onus onto non-disabled people who often don't think about this. Somebody else asked, which platform does Melbourne Fringe use to source our Auslan interpreters? We use a bit of everything. We go through Auslan Stage Left. We recommend artists use Auslan Stage Left as interpreters. This is in Melbourne. And also we use freelancers for our kind of staff-based events or online events. So Paul, I know, is a regular of ours. And we also use Expression Australia. So there are a bunch of places you can go and have a look depending on where you are. And we have a Producer's Guide to Access, which if you Google Melbourne Fringe Producer's Guide to Access, you'll find a guide to make your shows accessible, and there are some Auslan contacts there. Someone asked for Laila, can you provide an example of more holistic and decolonising projects, Laila?
Oh, that's a tough one. I guess, for example, so I'm producing currently with the Ilbidgery Theatre a project called Crab and the Mangrove Tree, and it's actually a children's theatre show based on the people of Saibai on Saibai Island. And normally we would just do, you know, the normal process of producing this work would be get the grant funding, contract all the creatives, you know, get what you need off the island, and then put it in the you know, the big sort of mainstream stages, i.e. QPAC, blah, 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 Opera House, etc. But we've actually pivoted and changed this project now. We're actually going to be making it in a way that actually it's led by the community completely from day dot. So for example, we have to acknowledge all the Saibai mob, not just on Saibai. Actually, we have to look at all the 4 communities that are in Saibai, Sacia, Cairns and Brisbane, and have one person from each of those communities be a part of the process from the get-go. And in fact, instead of us contracting those mob, we'd allow the communities to actually nominate that person. You know, I guess in normal theatre world, it would go to the person who's got the most credentials or who's got the biggest, you know, following, etc. That's not what it's about. This story is for Saibai mob, and it's made by them, for them, etc. And yeah, and I guess it's just more about looking at the frameworks what already exist in communities, blackfellow communities, and just how can we actually enhance it instead of take and turn it into something else. You know, that's a very white way of working. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, Laila. I have a question for Nat from Ruby. Nat says, Ruby says, I read that your cooking videos were initially in response to the food shortages in supermarkets. Do you think you would have made this content if it weren't for the current situation? And what advice do you have to content creators who want to actively engage with the world around them in order to maximize their platform?
That's a great question. I don't know in terms of whether I would have made these videos or not. I think so. I was trying to work with what I thought was going to happen there, making these cooking videos. It was in, yeah, I don't know. I'm always on for a whinge about things to wind me up a bit. So that's my whole thing. But yeah, I don't know whether I can say yes or no to that one. In respect to how you can engage better with your audience, the best way I've found is to listen to the positive responses you get from people on your channel. Always just make more and more, and see what people are liking within your creative boundaries. Don't ever do things that you don't want to do. I don't think that's a cool way to, you know, that might make you feel good. And just reply to everyone, talk to as many people, and be on as many platforms as you can be bothered managing. It's a lot of work. Yeah, just hang in there and keep going.
Yes. We've had one from Luke, a question from Luke. What's the best way to move the onus of access to the non-disabled community? I think to echo Laila's response to her question, I think it's really, really important to engage with us and to, you know, work with us from day dot and budget for access. Anyone else got anything to add? I've got a few more questions coming in and there's only a few minutes, so.
The one thing I will add to that is encourage your friends and family to push for access, even if there's no known disabled people involved. Like one of the best ways to improve access as a normalized thing is to, if you're throwing a birthday party, use a pub that's wheelchair accessible. Like just try and build it into every little decision, and hopefully together it all adds up.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jacci.
Yeah, I was just thinking, nodding my head with Erin. Yeah, and it's about, like I said before, you know, we talk about making it, normalizing it, but it's making it usual, just making it every day, you know, conversations with people. And I think in my last day job, I was known as the accessibility harpy, because I just continued, everything was just, and you know, and it's very tiring, and of course it's a huge amount of emotional labor. So, you know, when you can, I suppose I just wanted to make a comment there too about self-care in that space, and that is we need to share the load, and a bit what Laila was saying about community arts where we care for each other, and in having those conversations, having a sort of standby network of people when you're too tired, or you don't have enough spoons, who might put their hand up and volunteer and help as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a question from Jess. Do you have any tips for making digital art accessible for the audiences who have difficulties perceiving visual and audio, like how to translate scent and tactile through digital mediums? I think you can contact someone like Will McCrosty, who works at Description Victoria. Will and his team provide audio descriptions for people, and look, we just did mini audio descriptions at the start, so we described you know, ourselves and our settings, our surroundings, but also I know that there has been a really great event run by I think it was at Fowler, which was a Canadian festival, and one of my friends and colleagues, I'm just going back to my text message from her, Sarah Hubert, who is a blind performer. Sarah said that a show called May I Take Your Arm was a digital event at a festival in Toronto, and Sarah really liked that event because it had some conversations with the director and the actors before and after the event, and people who were blind or have low vision could ask the directors and actors what happened when they didn't quite understand things, or they didn't quite pick up on things, and she said that it was a really great event. So that was May I Take Your Arm by Alex Bulmer. And if you go onto our Producer's Guide to Access, there's a bunch of ways to make your shows more accessible with tactile tours and also audio descriptions, some contacts there. I think it's really just about describing what's happening in the event, describing accurately, and getting some training around that as well. And I know Will and other people in similar organisations do that. We've got around 3 minutes. I'm going to ask one more question. This is a really good one, I think. Whilst COVID has allowed a lot of quality free digital content, does this feed into the notion that artists do it as a hobby and not a job? Anyone can jump in here.
Yes.
Apparently I was muted. Am I back?
You're back.
You're back.
Yeah, like obviously, because I do podcasts, and the whole joke is like, you know, what do you call like a group of white guys, a podcast? Like, you know, like there's this idea that podcasts are this like pure hobby thing, and like, or they're, you know, the super polished stuff, and we're actually, there's a huge variation. So like, unfortunately, yes, I do think that all the free content does feed into that idea that artists are just doing it for a hobby, but I also don't think that's our responsibility to fix. Because I love providing free content. That's my favorite thing about podcasts, is that they're so punk DIY. Yeah, and being a filthy socialist, it's great that the people who have money can throw it at us, and those who can't not. So yeah,
great. Anyone else here? We've got a minute left. I think it's really important, as Erin said, you know, artists have got Patreon and PayPal, and that's a really great way of showing that your value and that you value them. And also it'd be really great to see corporations sort of take it up. I really liked what Nat did with the Cancer Council this year. I mean, I don't know, Nat, was that paid thing for you, but you were also raising money?
No, that wasn't a paid thing at all. No, my partner Jules works at the Cancer Council.
Yeah,
well, was up until recently, and no, it's just an idea we had to instead of putting the video on our page for the week, we'd move it to the Cancer Council New South Wales page. It was awesome. Huge,
it was really
roaring
great.
success. Yeah,
It was a really good collaboration, and I would love to see more of those kinds of collaborations with content makers. I have one more question for you before we wrap up. Where can we find you, Jackie? Oh, sorry. You can go, Nat. It's fine.
You can just type in "that's what I reckon" into Google. There's plenty of spots you can find me there.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Jacci Pillar with my unique spelling.
Laila?
Yeah, Instagram, Laila, Laila _black shell, and that spouts out to everything, Ilbidgery, my art, etc.
Erin?
Easiest way to find me is go to my website, erinkyan.com. Everything you could want to find that I do is there.
Amazing. And I've been Carly Findlay, and I am Carly Findlay on Instagram, Twitter, and also Facebook. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been such a fun chat this afternoon. Thank you for coming and enjoying yourself at Melbourne Fringe VCR Fest. Do go see other events. We've got heaps of stuff happening. We've got Lou Wall happening tomorrow night. We've got La Nuna, I believe they're cooking pasta, and also Marie's Crisis later tonight, which is amazing. I went to see Marie's Crisis last year at Trades Hall, and they were so fun. So, book a ticket, pay the artist what you feel, and have fun. Thank you, everyone. And thanks to Ricky as well for joining us via video.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.